Hello there. Welcome to the Maker Manager Money podcast, a podcast about entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, founders, business owners, and business partnerships. From startups to stay-ups, to inspire entrepreneurs to keep going and future entrepreneurs to just start. My name is Kyle Knowles, and today's guest is Jill Wright, founder of Executive Shine, a company that has redefined what it means to deliver exceptional service in the most unexpected places. Jill has been running Executive Shine for over 38 years, with locations in the Denver and Charlotte International airports. But this isn't just a story about shining shoes. It's about leading with love and transforming everyday moments into meaningful connections. As Jill puts it, what does love look like here for the person in front of me right now? This simple yet profound question has guided her approach to business, leadership, and life. From her ranch in Colorado, where she raises horses and chickens, to her innovative training program called the Shine Experience, Jill has mentored hundreds of leaders on implementing a service culture that drives engagement and creates high-functioning teams. Her unconventional approach to business and leadership has earned recognition from Forbes and Harvard Business Review. One of my favorite quotes from Jill is, "There is no connection in perfection." Her story reminds us that sometimes our greatest challenges become our greatest gifts in serving others. Jill, where are you calling from?
I'm in Colorado. I'm in Elizabeth, Colorado. So I have a little ranch out here outside of Denver. And I have a bunch of horses, dogs, chickens, all kinds of animals.
That's great. And how many horses do you have?
10.
10 horses. That's amazing. Is that for riding, for use on the farm or ranch, or what do you do with the horse?
Riding.
Okay.
I ride English and I do dressage, which is kind of like horse developmental gymnastics. It's building up their body and teaching them how to carry in a way that supports their structure. And it's also beautiful. It's like kind of like horse dancing. And I'm kind of a chicken, so I like to stay on the ground, and I like the mental aspect, and I like the focus of really connecting with them as an animal and just becoming one and working together with them. It's really fun. It's a welcome break from other life. So it's what I do for fun.
It's a welcome break from your business and staying so busy. I've heard that there is something about being magical about being around horses for long periods of time, and you really become, like you said, one with the horses, or they really get to know you well. They're, dogs are man's best friend, but horses are definitely our best friends as well. Is that?
Absolutely. They're very grounding, because they have 4 legs on the ground and not just 2. Same with dogs. All of my horses have different personalities. All of them have taught me different things about life and different. I remember when I first started riding many, 20 some years ago, because it was a dream I had. I rode as a child with my grandfather, and it was a dream I had that when I was able to afford it, I would able to have a place where I could have horses. And my trainer, who is an older German strict woman, she said, "You need to calm down before you go to your barn." And she said, because you need to be aware of how your energy impacts the horses and people, because you have big energy and it like arrives in the room. And so that was something that really taught me about paying attention to who's in front of me and mirroring that energy and being sensitive to how I impact people. So they've just taught me so many things.
That's wonderful. I love that. How many years ago was that when your trainer said this to you?
I think 2001.
Okay. So almost 25 years ago.
It was a long time ago.
And had anyone told you that you kind of had that big energy before this?
Um, not not in that way. I was maybe told I was too much. You're like, you're too big, too much, too excited. Can you be a little less excited? And I think I've learned how to not not close that energy down, but to modify it and channel it in ways that are a softer impact for some people. And then sometimes I just can't help it. I'm just excited. I love life and I love people, and something happens to me, I think, when I'm in front of people. I before I go enter a room, or when I'm coming into the airport to go to work, when I'm coming up the escalator, I try to bring my energy into my heart. And I think that's a distinction that has made greater impact with me. And I try just to be in love. And I try to just then, wherever I go, then I'm tuned into what is my intuition telling me? What does the person in front of me need? How can I serve? One of the things that we say in our business is, what does love look like here for the person in front of me right now? So I try to keep that front of mind. And I find that when I do that, I'm able to touch people in a more impactful way. And we also are using that within the new workshops we're doing called the Shine Experience, where we're teaching people, like, where is your energy in your body? And just to have awareness about that. And I try and make it light and funny because they don't always know, and I don't want them to feel scared. But I tell them to bring it into their heart and then to send it down through their arms into the person in front of them that they're working on, if they're conditioning their shoes or working on them. And then I want the person in front of them to reflect back to them if they can feel that. And when they experience somebody giving them feedback about coming from their heart and how that impacts the connection that they're making, then they embody that. Then they can learn it for themselves. And it's not me in front of the room telling them that they can make a bigger impact in the world if they come from a place of love and if they come from their heart. All of the things that happen to you teach you better ways of connecting with people. And so that's been a powerful lesson that I've learned from them and then kind of incorporated in my business.
I love it, because I think I've never heard of that concept of channeling your energy through your heart, because I feel like a lot of times it's very easy for us to have our energy channeled between our ears and, the thinking part. And when mine's channeled between my ears and from the head, it usually results in very self-centeredness and ideas about myself and what are other people going to think about me, or fear is in your head a lot, and these ideas and that we get that never come to pass, never come true, and are false ideas, comes from the head. And I think the heart, bringing it down to your heart, allows you to look outside yourself more. Is that fair to say?
Well, and build real connection, because you're absolutely right. I also took HeartMath certification to be a HeartMath coach. And when I did that, I was like, wow, that's exactly what we do at the airport. Like, that's where fear lives. If whenever you're in a stressful situation and you ask yourself, where is my energy? And like, pretend you're driving and you're like, someone's cut you up and you're just irritated, and you recognize, wow, this is where my energy is. Or when you're going on stage and you're speaking in front of people, and you're like, oh, I hope I do okay, and I'm afraid to screw up, and I don't want to do all those things. If you can just take that moment and bring that energy down to your heart and understand that you're there to touch the hearts of everyone in the room. And it also, I think it's powerful to have that as an intention. So when you pull that down and you say, I'm here to serve, I'm here to love. How can I love you today? How many people are really afraid of loving? That takes a lot of the fear out of it. And it's also important, I think, to ask myself, what does love look like for me right now? You know, if I'm in a situation where I'm overwhelmed and I'm stressed out about, I've got 10,000 things to do, and I'm beating up on myself. You should be better, Jill. You should be on top of everything. Where is that? And I think, am I loving myself right now? You know, what do I need to do? And just bring that down here, and you say, you know what? It's just, it doesn't matter. I'm going to do the best I can, as much as I can today. And I'm also going to do things that bring me joy. Because when you shift into that energy in love, and when you do things that bring you joy, it's like a magnetic force that happens. And it's just, it's unbelievable. Like, someone will call you that was on your list and you needed to talk to them, and they're like, hey, I was just thinking about you, and I know we needed to get together and whatever. So then I can like check those things off my list. Or someone will say, hey, I took care of that because I know you hate to do paperwork and all of that stuff. And it's amazing how much spirit will take care of the things that were stressing you out if you're shifting your energy and coming from that right place.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I feel like when I'm not in the right place, I don't reach out as much to people. And sometimes when you don't hear from people for a while, you think, oh, they must be in a place that's hard right now and hard for them to reach out. And so when you develop that sense of coming from a space of love and energy, you start reaching out. Synchronicity starts happening left and right.
Yeah.
Reach out to you, you reach out to them, and you're whatever you put out in the universe is coming back to you. So I love that idea. Can we talk a little bit about HeartMath? What exactly is HeartMath?
That is an institute where they do a lot of research on heart brain coherence. It's a fascinating book work of study. They've done so much work to understand that you have neurons from in, like, you actually have a heart brain, that the brain is the servant of the heart, and that the heart really does have neurons that can direct your work and direct your connection with other people, and that you feel more in your heart. And that then when you build coherence in your heart, then it drives all of the synchronicities. It brings your brain into serving your heart. And it also is something that they teach that also helps with like first responders, people that are dealing with stress. Because think about your decisions that you make when you're in a place of heart coherence versus when you're in a place of stress in your mind. And can you actually touch people brain to brain versus heart to heart? So that's where the real human connection begins. And that's the part, ironically, I think that's the part that people protect the most, because in many businesses and groups, it's not safe to speak your truth. Where does your truth live? It lives here.
Yeah.
The stories is what your mind creates, and that tells you, oh, Jill, you're not good enough. You're, all of these things, all of these limiting beliefs and stories, they're all created in your mind. So if you can just have that as a practice and come back and center yourself and say, what does my heart really say about that right now? Is that really true? Is that what my heart says? And it's not. So, and I'm a really spiritual person too. So that's, I call that kind of my me and God place. And that's where we come together and work as a team. And I feel like that's where my divine guidance lives and my intuition lives is here. And I know when I speak from here and when I listen from here, that I make a bigger impact on the people around me. And it feels good at the end of the day, you know?
I love that. I love that sentiment. And can we do a little heart math work right now? Can you help me a little bit? Just talk through a couple of things for me, because as you know, we met, over a year ago or so. And I think when we met doing some executive workshops and things like that, I had a lot of confidence, I think, at that time, and was doing this podcast and had done it for several months. I had a lot of opportunity to talk to people, entrepreneurs, and learn about their stories and share those with others. And I was so excited about it. And I felt like it was coming from my heart. And then, as you know, my son, Jake, passed away in February, and I kind of lost a lot of that mojo and confidence. And of course, grief, it's something you have to carry. I guess, first of all, I just want to say, if you can talk through, maybe some of the things that happened to my heart and moving everything to my head, and then having a lot of fears about getting back into the podcast. And even though I really enjoyed it, like logically, I can look back and go, that was some of the most creative, fun times that I had. In a short period of 9 months, I interviewed 33 entrepreneurs, and some of them I had known for a while, but most of them I had met recently. Thankfully, you've been very generous in letting me cancel and finally put this podcast recording on your schedule. But maybe you can talk through with me maybe what happened from the heart mind situation, and maybe explain HeartMath a little bit more, just for my situation and my experience.
First of all, I really want to honor the way that you've dealt with this, because I think that's one of the most difficult, if not the most difficult thing that can happen to a person. And, one of the people that I think I sent you a podcast of was Mo Godet, and he also lost his son. And as a process of healing, he's done so much work to honor his son's legacy by doing all this happiness work that he's doing, which has been therapy for him. So for me, I'll take you back a little bit. For when I was 15, I graduated high school early, and I was, had saved up a bunch of money, and I wanted to surprise my dad because he didn't know I was graduating early, and my stepmom and she ruined my surprise, and we got in a big blowout about that. And he came to me and said, I have to choose between you and his wife, my stepmother, and which had just been like a year that they'd been married, and I choose her. So that was deeply, deeply painful for me. Nowhere near the pain that you've experienced. However, what I went through in that experience was my relationship with God was much stronger. And I was like, okay, God, it's just me and you. And I moved out, went back with my mom when I was 15, and basically, was kind of on my own after that. My mom was very supportive. But what I learned when I started my business is that I loved people because I needed love. And because of those things that happened to me, I have been able to impact millions of people around the country through a very simple service where really, Executive Shine is a shoe shine service company. But what I realized is that because I had that hole in my heart, that because I served then by loving people, I recognized that, wow, it wasn't only me, that everyone has a story, and everyone, it didn't matter. CEOs, Supreme Court justices, senators, congressmen, oil field workers, it didn't matter. They all had a hole in their heart. They all wanted to be seen and heard and loved. And because of the pain that I went through as a 15-year-old girl, when I started my business when I was 20, I had the focus of loving people because I needed to heal. But because I served people in that way, that's what taught me about coming from the heart. So as that business has developed, I now I see it almost like it was a divine contract. If he wouldn't have told me I would never make it without him, if I hadn't experienced that pain as a child, then I wouldn't have developed this business, which really focuses on loving people through the doorway of Executive Shine, and then built the Shine experience after that, because I want to take touching people to the next level. I want people to build cultures where they're at work, where this is where I come. This is my safe place. This is where I can be developed as a human. I can also learn work skills. I can build relationships. I can build community. We can start to do great things together, and all coming from that place of love. But if I wouldn't have had that experience, I don't think that I would have had the impact. Because think about it, if you have a perfect life, and you have no difficult things, you don't grow, and so I think when I look at my life, I think that was one of the biggest gifts that really broke my heart open so that God could come together with me and I could really live my divine purpose. And so what I see for you is that this is an opportunity for you to really, it broke you open. And I think the impact that you can have now, really embodying the things that you've gone through and feeling and looking for the gifts within each interview, each connection, to touch the hearts of people, because there's a lot of people out there. There's a lot of parents out there. There's a lot of people that have gone through what you've gone through. And your capacity to heal through loving, I think, has been magnified 1,000%. I think I obviously I knew you before. You've always been a really loving person, but it feels to me like your heart, like when you showed up on this call, it's your heart that showed up. And so I really feel like embodying that love and learning all of the lessons that are the gifts within this tragedy are going to make your impact in the world really significantly amplified. And I can feel how you can also embody the love that you've had for your son and the love that your son was, that who he was also, I think, lives in your heart. And if you can just continue to feel him there and to share and do your divine purpose work in the world from that place, that you can touch people in a really powerful way that other people who have not experienced that would not be able to. How do you feel about that?
No, I feel that it's spot on. It's a lot of what I've been feeling, a lot of what I've been thinking. I saw a clip this past week of Andrew Garfield, the actor. He was in Social Network. He was Spider-Man, talking about the loss of his mother and saying how when we grieve and the tears come easily, and this week's been a week of, for some reason, thinking about Jake a lot and a lot of hard crying. But Andrew Garfield said that grief that you carry the rest of your life is simply unexpressed love.
Yeah.
And the way that we connect with the person that we've lost is to express that grief through crying and emotion. And that's how we stay connected. And so he doesn't fear carrying that grief the rest of his life. And I just thought he said it so well, and it helped a lot. I needed to hear that this week. And I needed to hear what you said too, because believe me, I've been living in my head, going back and forth between heart and head, and having a lot of fear and sadness and questions and doubt, that fear, uncertainty, and doubt, FUD. from this tragedy. I'm really grateful that I'm able to talk to you and that you were able to share some insights from your HeartMath work and the work that you do. And this podcast has been a bigger deal than I ever thought it would be. And now getting a chance to reconnect with you and get insights from you has just been very helpful. So thank you for sharing that, Jill. I really appreciate that. And I want to go back to your growing up years. And you said, at 15, this experience happened to you. There was a hole in your heart, but before you went into business at 20. So let's talk about, your first 20 years. And, we know at 15, this happened to you where there was a break between your father and you, him choosing someone else and saying that you couldn't make it without him, those kinds of things, and you moving back in with your mom. But were there any instances throughout your first 20 years of your life before you started Executive Shine that maybe helped move you towards entrepreneurship instead of going and working for someone else?
I had a coffee cup when I was 13 that said conform and be dull. So I think I don't know how I got that rebel, but I'm such a rebel. And any of the jobs that I had, I worked, I used to manage health clubs. I worked at a clothing store, which is one of my favorite jobs I ever had because I love clothes. And I just knew that I wasn't going to be able to fit in a box. There, I just, there, I wanted to create and build something myself. And when my friend asked me, if I wanted just to learn about shining shoes, she needed someone to work with her, and I thought, I was, like 19. She was 40, and I thought, you are having one of those midlife crises that I've heard about. And I went to see her and I worked with her for a day, and I thought, this is fabulous. You meet amazing people and you create art. You take something ugly and you look for the beauty within it and you bring the beauty out in it. And then the people are so happy and shocked that you turn something dirty into something beautiful. And then after they get done, they pay you. And I thought, this is fabulous. So for me, I've always had a really accidentally, divinely guided life. And I think there was no accident that happened, because somehow God knew that was a business that wouldn't require, like, I couldn't be an entrepreneur, like maybe a tech entrepreneur or an accounting entrepreneur or any of those kinds of things. I had to do something that involved people and serving people. And so just being that type of rebellious kind of doesn't fit in the box kind of person, I think that when you live that way, that things come to you if you're in tune with it and if you're paying attention, and it feels really right to you. Like, this is, this feels great. At the end of the day, I serve people. I do all of these things. I make their day. I listen to them. I listen to them laugh. I listen to them cry. All of these different things. And then I get paid. So that's kind of how that evolved. But I tell people that I'm a little bit Sarah Blakely, a little bit Laura Ingalls Wilder, and I'm definitely unemployable. So, because I don't respond well to other people telling me what to do. So I think I was destined to be an entrepreneur just because I had those personality traits. I'm also a Gemini, so I just love being with people and learning about them. I'm just insatiable learning. And I think that's also, I think, something that's important is that I always want to be better. And I learned at a very, I remember my uncle out on the porch saying to me, Jill, you don't have to be the smartest person in the room. You just have to surround yourself with smart people. And so find the people that are really good and they love to do the things that you don't love to do. And so I think that's another piece of entrepreneurship that's really important. But often entrepreneurs are really workaholics. And I tell people don't get into your own business if you want to have an easy life and not work. Because the first year I was in Washington, I think I worked 361 consecutive 18, 20-hour days, was really difficult. And I had to learn the process of hiring the right people, of asking the right questions, in the beginning, I just hired anybody with a pulse. And then I had to learn I need to hire people like that sincerely love people. So when I'm interviewing, I'm like, what is the impact that you've had on the people around you in your life this week? And how important is that to you? So I think that entrepreneurs often hire people that are like them. In building a big company, you have to hire people that have your core beliefs, but different skill sets. Because I think so many entrepreneurs don't want to relinquish control to other people. So if you hire based on values and you trust them, then you can feel safe delegating those things to them so that they can do what they love and you can do what you love, and you can all come together as unique pieces of the puzzle. And I think that's a really powerful way to build a successful organization. But I think that if it's not fun, hire it done is a good rule for me. And because trying to sort through things that I'm not good at, what it does actually is it takes me out of my heart and it puts me in my head.
Mm.
And that's where my stress lives and my negative judgment and Jill, you terrible at this and all that. So I think that's an important piece for entrepreneurs to stay in that creative place in their heart. And I think all business is a vehicle to love people, really, to serve people. And and I don't care if it's making Apple, computers and phones, and because their focus was always serving, creating something that would really make life easier for people, serve people at the highest level. But if you can have that focus, like what we're creating is making an impact in the world. And I'm going to build a team of unique individuals and I'm going to honor each one of them and we're going to grow together. And that doesn't always work. I mean, you get all kinds of different people sometimes, but for me, I've been very blessed and I have people that work. I don't have anybody that works for me that's been working for me like longer than like 10 years. And my manager in the airport here in Denver has been working for me since he was 14, and he's going to be 41. So unique individuals and to put them in a box and to hold them back, if you can empower them with the freedom to create and come together, then this creation and this creation comes together to create something even bigger. Then I think that's your secret sauce. And that's where you can really build a business for impact. And that makes everybody feel good at the end of the day. When like you're making big impact with this podcast, and I want you to really own that. And you're giving permission not only for people to learn about these different things about being an entrepreneur, but also being a human. These really difficult tragedies in our life that open our hearts up even bigger. And for me, I feel people's spirits. And so I really feel like that it's part of your son's legacy to express that love through you.
I love that. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. There were a couple of things that you've said on the podcast so far. I just love, and the first one was conforming is dull.
Conform and be dull. That's
conform and be dull. Okay.
I remember and it's just so funny. I mean, I don't remember very many things. I'm old now. I can't remember, but that coffee cup that was my battle cry. I was not going to conform. I was not that was boring.
Yeah.
Even when we had dinner, when we had to say prayers before dinner, and one night my brother would say it, next night me, and my prayers would always be funny, and my mother would be like, why do you always have to be so different? And I was like, well, think about it. If God's sitting up there and people are only praying like, God, please help me. God, get me out of this situation. God, do this. Thank you, God. God needs a little entertainment. So I was always said like funny prayers, because I thought, well, I'm not going to just bother God all the time. I'm going to make it fun. And I'm going to make him like excited when he gets to hear my dinner prayers, because they're going to be fun and funny. And so I think that's part of non-conforming.
Yeah, I love that. And I've heard before something to the effect of, would you rather be in the Navy or be a pirate? It's kind of a similar situation, because if you join the Navy, you're going to conform to all these different rules that have someone telling you what to do. But if you're a pirate, you get to go out and conquer the world. And
Lord,
yeah.
Lord, you get to be free. I respect people that can follow rules and systems and all of those things. And I do make some of my own systems, and I do think that they can serve you as a nonconformist, but I want people to be free.
Yeah.
I want their heart to do what it came to do. And I want, like, for me, I want my heart to touch people wherever they need it. Like a heat-seeking missile, And I'm like, God, just please let me touch people in a way where they can see you, and they can see spirit in what they do, and they can see beauty in who they are, and they can learn to love themselves and love the people around them and really see the beauty in the people around them, and to look for it and to look for the gift within everything that they do, because there's always learning, there's always expansion, there's always the opportunity to love bigger.
Yeah, I agree. The other thing that you said that's going to stick with me is, if it's not fun, hire it done. That delegation, I think, is from talking to other entrepreneurs, that's kind of a hard thing to hand that over when, especially when you're a team of one, when you first start out and you're doing it all and you have certain ways of doing it.
Yeah.
So how did you overcome and decide that I'm going to let go? Was it working 361 days straight, 18-hour days, or?
I think fatigue. Also, getting the right people around me that I felt were really in alignment with what my core mission was. When I learned to hire people based on their capacity to love, and then if they had accounting skills, then working with the skills, and and developing those people, and seeing and feeling them, and feeling their loyalty. One of the interesting things, I think, it's very hard to let go. And if you can build a team, I call leadership like it's like you have a bunch of vanilla ice cream in these different people in front of you. And it's our job as leaders to develop them and give them, if they want to be chocolate, help them be the best that they can be. If they want to be butter brickle. So it's my job as a leader to pour into them to develop their flavor. And when you build a team that has, like Baskin Robbins, like 31 flavors, then nobody's competing with each other because all flavors are good. So they can take from the different pieces and the different combinations of flavors. So one of the things I notice is that people are really loyal when you develop gifts in them that they didn't see before. So when the people at the airport, they'll say to me, "How do you have no turnover? How do you do that?" And I said, in a word, honor. Because I honor who they are and I develop who they are, because I want my customers, and I'm front facing, serving the public. So this might be different in different businesses, but I want my people I want there to be something for everyone. So I want to develop the unique abilities and personalities of each of my unique people. Because that way, when the customer comes to connect with us, they can find what feels best to them. They can connect with what matches and what they're interested in. If it's cars or sports or financial markets or family or animals or dogs or race car driving or whatever it is. And I find that people who have never been really seen or honored for who they are, like, wow, you actually think that me talking about cars is a good thing, or they've never had leadership that developed them as human beings, that they start to believe in themselves. So I also have a saying that love rolls downhill within an organization. So if I see them and I love what they're good at and I continue to develop that in them, then as they grow, then then they feel like, wow, I'm actually kind of an expert in this. And I'm actually, really good. But it's the first time maybe in their life that someone has honored them for just being them. And I think that that's really, really important. And to understand that people have different types of you appreciate people differently, that people have different appreciation languages, just like they have love languages.
Mm-hmm.
So if you develop, honor, and love your people in that way, then number one, you can delegate to them and you can build trust because you know that they're loyal and they're in alignment with your mission. They care about your business. And so that takes a little bit of stress and responsibility off of you. And I think it's fun to develop people. I think it's fun to learn about them and I think it's fun to water the garden. I think it's fun to see them grow and see them build their self-confidence and their self-image. But it's directly proportionate to the amount of growth that I'm willing to do and the amount of vulnerability and truth I'm willing to tell myself and trust I'm willing to build with myself to listen to my intuition about developing this person. Is this person, really, are we in alignment? And to be able to let those things go and then let me do what I do and they do what they do and they love, then I think that's a more powerful, unifying team. And then I think you can accomplish amazing things together.
I agree, and I love the idea that it takes a vulnerable leader to allow their employees to be authentic.
Absolutely.
I think the initial reaction to who you want on your team and how you want your team to be is like you. And so to celebrate and welcome diverse personality types and then look at their strengths, look at what they're into, and allow them those things to flourish and develop those strengths in them, I think you have a lot better chance of retaining the employee, a lot better chance of success in your business if you allow people to be their authentic selves.
Absolutely. And I have a saying that there is no connection in perfection because that lives in your head, first of all. And even in nature, they cut seeds in half and graft them together to create new trees and new, all these different things. So they're to connect with people. I mean, just imagine if I said, "Hi, I'm perfect. How are you?" Like, thanks. Not interested, you know? And but yet it's the biggest thing that people are afraid of is, am I good enough? Am I going to be perfect? And it's the imperfection that gives you the opportunity to connect. It's the same thing with your heart. If your heart wasn't broken open, I'm not saying you wouldn't have been able to, but the capacity you have to connect with people now, and I know this is true because I've lived it for the last 38 years, the the capacity that you have to connect with people from an open heart is 10,000% greater than it was before. And I think that's what the world really needs right now, is where are we similar? Where can we come together and build on your idea, and you have part of an idea, I have another part of an idea, and how can we build that together, honoring each other as diverse people, as diverse perspectives. And I think that's how we grow. I mean, I mean, I have, I don't know, 20 different countries of people working for me. And they have one of my favorite things about that is that I like food, and they share their food. And I think that sharing food together and learning about unique ceremonies that they have within there. I love different El Salvadorian food and Peruvian food and Hispanic food and Ethiopian food, and the Ethiopian coffee ceremony, and the way that they make everything so special. And when you get to know people that way, I think you can love them on a different level, and you can build relationship in common areas, and then just continue to add to that.
I
So
love it.
I love diversity. I mean,
Yeah.
it's my favorite thing. And I don't want to interrupt you, but the one of the things I think about a lot of the DEI work is it separates people, and we do a lot with the DEI, like with the Shine experience, like looking beyond the surface, or for really training yourself to look for the beauty in the person across from you. Like, what can you teach me about Ethiopia, El Salvador, like, Nicaragua, like all of these different Venezuela, all these different places. And what can I teach you, and how can we build then a culture where we respect and honor each other, versus the everything has to be fair. Yeah, you got to be fair, but you got to just feel your way through that and have leadership that looks at that to begin with.
Yeah.
And this piece connects with this piece, and honoring all of those different perspectives.
Yeah, it reminds me of what you said. Love trickles down, so you have to have leadership that have that love and that capacity for love. Executive Shine's mission statement emphasizes being powered by love. When you interview employees for a job, how do you determine whether they have the capacity for love?
I ask them, tell me the positive impact you've had on the people around you this week.
Wow.
And what does love mean to you? Tell me about a situation where you love people. Tell me a situation where you felt loved, because I want to know how they feel loved also, because it's important to understand how they receive it. But just to ask those kind of questions in the beginning, and if they look at you like you have three heads, you know that person is not a match for your team.
I love it. Yeah. Those are great questions to ask. And I know you're in the service industry, but I agree with you that this can apply to any business. And I love that you have the Shine experience, so that you can offer that kind of, if you want to call it touchy-feely experience, or soft skills, right? Because soft skills always win. You can train someone on the hard skills, but soft skills, developing soft skills and having that capacity to love, I think makes such a big difference. You went and worked with someone who was already doing shoe shining. You decided to help them. You did some shoe shining. You decided to start a business. Where did you start that business? How did it become Executive Shine? And where are you today? Where can someone go get a shoe shine from Executive Shine? I know you have 5 locations in the Denver International Airport. You also have 2 locations, I believe, in Charlotte.
I started working. I started working with another woman that had worked with my friend, and she needed someone to go open a location in Santa Clara. So actually, I went to Santa Clara right away, and then I recognized like I need to do this for myself because I have I have better systems. I understand people better. I can make improvements in this, and I have the focus on people and
Mhm.
and not just the focus on just shoes only, like how many can I do people fast, and not the focus on volume. I had the focus on relationships. And I met a gentleman from the airport in Washington, D.C. when I was working. I had the contract to do here at the Hyatt downtown. And he said, would you be interested in coming to Washington? So I can't take credit. I think God helps me out way more than I deserve sometimes. And he said, would you be interested in coming to Washington? And I said, yeah, my brother goes to Johns Hopkins. I could be out, near Baltimore. And he said, we're building a concept called innovative air courts, and we would really like you to join us. And we went through the contract, the request for proposal process. Then he sent me a document that was this thick. And, as I mentioned, I'm allergic to 2 pieces of paper sticking together, much less 100. And so I went to the Small Business Council and administration, and they helped me respond to the proposal because I didn't learn any of that in college. And so I submitted my proposal to Washington, D.C., and they selected me. And so that's how that got started. And then the Denver airport, then it came up that the Denver airport they opened the airport without shoe shine. And so that opportunity came up. There's some funny stories around that. And then the Charlotte airport called and said, we're interested in having you come here. And so I think if you operate at the highest level, that people will see. And I've never advertised, I've never, sought after contracts. They've always come to me. And the people have always wanted to work for me at the airport. They've come up and said, I want a job. And so I feel very blessed. But I think the main focus of our conversation is really to come from your heart. And part of that I also wanted to mention is I was intimidated by my father, and he was very smart in his head, could very articulate, could speak, he could talk words around anyone. And I think that's another thing that caused me to be heart focused instead of head focused, because actually I felt more secure in my heart. And when you operate from there, and it's funny how things happen in your life,
Yeah.
that tragedies connect you to your divine purpose. And I see that in story after story after story with people. And that the reason that they have the capacity to do what it is that they do is because of something that happened in their life earlier.
Yeah.
And it's hard in your situation. It's hard, but hard things are are what really show you what you're made of, you know, show you when you overcome something like you're doing right now, the the feeling, even though you have to work at it every day, the satisfaction of knowing that you're making a difference, you're doing the right thing, that you got through the day okay today, and that you chose to look for something that would lift you out of the difficult feeling that you might be feeling, because it's always a choice, and you can go down a rabbit hole, and that's okay too, because it's always, it's duality, there's always both. And the days that I have that are really difficult, I always have a breakthrough in the next day.
Mm.
And because I know that wow, I'm really down today, and and this sucks, and but I know that after I go through this, and if I come through this and I make it through this, I know that's where my breakthrough is on the other side of it. And I I I feel like that you're starting to recognize some of your breakthroughs.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of almost like re-entering the atmosphere, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
it's been a little painful, but you've really helped me in this conversation. I really appreciate you taking time today to speak with me. I think we talked about the most important things. I really do. I just have a few more lightning round questions. These are easy.
Oh, good.
First question is, are you a musician?
No,
Do you like to sing? You don't play any instruments? Do you like music?
I'm really not a music person. I was like, growing up, I was, in the 80s, I'm an 80s girl, so I was like an REO, like if songs come on like REO Speedwagon, or like old like Journey songs, or things that I rush, or things that I grew up with, but I like to listen to the music in nature.
Mm,
I like to be outside. I like to listen to the birds. I love birds. So for me at this point in my life, that's my music. Unless of course I, run into a good REO Speedwagon song.
I love it.
Or John Denver. That's another good one I
Oh, I
like.
love John Denver. Yeah. Okay. So favorite candy bar?
Oh geez. Probably Almond Joy, because I love coconut and I love dark chocolate and I love almonds.
Favorite musical artist then? REO Speedwagon, it sounds like.
REO Speedwagon. Well, I don't know. Then I came up with John Denver at the end, and that was really good. And then I've I just recently read Malcolm Gladwell's book called Miracle and Wonder. And that was about Paul Simon.
Mm,
And all of that older music, and the things that the creativity that he put into that creation, that music,
mhm.
was incredible. And when I want to go to my happy place, I listen to that book. I swear I've listened to it 20 times.
Wow.
Like, it's just the energy of the creativity of Paul Simon. So he's really gained my respect, I think, as an artist. And also Rick Rubin wrote a book called The Creative Act,
Mhm.
and his creative mind, the minds of those artists, and John Denver, the way he created, and even, this is going to date me, but even like the Carpenters, and some of these people. I know I gave you more than one. See, I'm a nonconformist.
I love all of those
I
answers.
love that. I
Yeah.
love that.
And I'm going to check out both those books.
Oh my God, they're so good.
Can't wait. Favorite cereal?
When I was a kid, my mom made homemade granola, and she would go to the feed store and get oats and bran and all of it. My mom made everything from scratch when we were little. That was part of my rebellion when I went to live with my dad, because I could I could eat junk food. Um and white bread. Oh my God. Because we had like homemade bread made in coffee cans, hard as a rock, cut in half, peanut butter and honey, ground made peanut butter, fresh honey. And so her homemade granola. So I have a soft spot granola, but when I was a rebel, I used to love Frosted Flakes because that was never was that allowed in our house. And if I went to a sleepover at somebody's house when I was a kid, they had Frosted Flakes. That was my favorite.
Nice. Mac or PC?
Mac,
Google or Microsoft?
Google.
Dogs or cats?
Oh wow, that's hard. I I guess dogs would edge out. I have 7 dogs. And I think dogs would edge out cats just slightly because they're a little more interactive, but I love them both. Dogs, cats, and horses, and chickens. I have chickens.
That's awesome.
I give eggs to everyone. That's my favorite thing. I was just telling my friend last night, I raised baby chickens this spring, and the rest of my chickens are pretty old. So now they're just starting to lay eggs. And I told her it is the most orgasmic treasure hunt experience to find where the chickens are hiding the eggs in the chicken coop. It makes me so happy. And last night I found 26 eggs, and I was like on top of the world. So chickens too.
So cool. Yeah. Chickens. Phantom or Les Mis?
Oh, Phantom. I love Phantom.
What's something that most people don't know about you?
Um, that I I think they don't know how, I mean, I think they get an idea, but they don't know how deeply I love them. And they don't know I'm a farmer. They don't know, like, I take care of my garden, and I plant flowers, and I mow my own yard. It's like vacuuming. It's fabulous. So I think they don't know how much. I had to do a refurbishment project for the airport shoe shines this year at the airport, and I had kind of a tight budget for that, so I had to do it myself. And me and my friend Sheila, who helps me here around the ranch and in my house a couple times a week or once a week, it was her and I. And the satisfaction that comes from learning things that nobody thought you could do. Like, I installed door handles, and I had to drill through marble, and I had to figure out how everything worked. And when you get done challenging yourself in ways that you didn't expect, and the best thing is I used rubber horse mats that are in horse trailers, because they wanted me to build an engineered flooring system
Mm.
at the airport. Oh, this is another rebellious thing. And so they wanted me to build the engineered floor. And so, when are you going to shut down to do that? And I said, I'm not shutting down. We're not closing. I'm not putting my people out of work. Are you kidding me? And I said, so if I present some other options that work, is that okay? And, I don't want him to completely throw me out. So what I did was I got 5x7 thick rubber mats that they put in horse trailers and in stalls. And I routered the edge of them so it had a slant to it, because we have to make it accessible for customers with their baggage. But I wanted it to be comfortable for my staff to stand on all day long, compared to the hard terrazzo floors.
Mhm.
So we did that. And then I took a belt sander and I made it even a more smooth bevel so that it would be really easy for customers' suitcases to roll up. And then we put a trim piece, a rubber transition strip around the edge, because then they said I had to have a rug on top of that. So then we figured out how to put that all together and we made it work, and it looks fabulous. And my staff is so grateful because their feet are not sore, because now they're standing on a half inch of rubber all day long. And so that's just a little example of when we pulled that rubber floor off, and I had to figure out, like, okay, I got to bevel this side and this side, but this side is going to connect with that side. So that needs to be flat. And I need to do the layout of all this so it all works. When that crazy stuff gets done, you just feel like Superwoman.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So I would recommend that. I like doing hard things. I like I like figuring things out
Yeah.
and doing hard things. Because I know that I'm a better person on the other end of hard things.
Yeah, I love that. I love that that idea and that grit that you have to figure it out and make it work no matter what, and your nonconformist attitude.
The city of Denver just kind of is like, oh God, here she comes again. you know, but we figure it out,
Yeah.
we make it work.
Well, just one last question. What's the book that you recommend the most to people? I know you mentioned a couple of books, Rick Rubin's and Malcolm Gladwell's latest book. What's a book that you recommend the most?
Oh, wow. Wow. I have a lot of those too. I'm reading right now Unreasonable Hospitality by Will Guidara, which is about being extraordinary. I love Tom Peters as an author. I love Good to Great.
Mm-hmm.
I love Simon Sinek. I love books that encourage you to explore what being the best you can be is. And there's so many, but I am just in love with the book I mentioned earlier, with that there is no book I have listened to 20 times.
And so that's a Malcolm Gladwell book about Paul
That's
Simon. What's it called?
yeah. It's called Miracle and Wonder.
Mm.
And just to listen to, because Malcolm Gladwell captured the creative process, and in the Audible book of that book, I would recommend Audible, because because Paul Simon sings and talks and he really captures the energy of creation, and he captures the wonder of it, and being in that state of, I wonder how this is going to turn out.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. And being in the joy of sound and of putting that together, you can feel him in that book. And there's so many books that I love. I listen constantly. One of my closest friends is Dr. Clarissa Pincole Estes, who wrote Women Who Run with Wolves. and many other absolutely extraordinary books. So as a personal friend, she's changed the world for women, honoring their process and giving them courage. So that would be another one of my favorite books. But for lighthearted inspiration and fun, CPE's got a bunch of, How to Be an Elder, The Wisdom of the Crone, like all different Mother Night. She tells these enchanting stories, which I fall asleep to almost every night. But between those two, I think those are my favorites.
I love it. I love that you're a reader. I've heard that leaders are readers. So I appreciate you sharing so many different ideas and from these books. And I'm excited to put them in my queue. Jill, I just want to thank you so much for taking some time today to be on the podcast. I'm looking forward to getting all of your ideas and the story and this whole episode published so that people can learn from all the wisdom you've gained after 38 years of being an entrepreneur and all the life lessons you've learned along the way. Thank you so much for being on here today.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And I love you.
I love you, Jill. Thank you so much.
I hope you feel that.
Thank you.